In tonight's Political Insider, Republican debate demands. Last week, the RNC suspended its relationship with NBC over the last presidential debate. Now, GOP candidates have crafted a list of requirements for all upcoming debates. For more, we turn to our guest tonight on Capitol Insider, Jessica Taylor, lead digital political reporter for NPR. All right, Jessica, over the weekend, the campaigns for all 14 Republican candidates met and agreed on several things, including a 2-hour time limit, 30 seconds for opening and closing statements, and equal speaking time for each candidate. Now, what do you make of their list of demands? Are they fair?
I think the first two are something that probably all of them can easily get behind and is pretty easily enforceable when you're negotiating from the outset. But I think the third one is one that's very hard to enforce when you're there on stage trying to keep track of who speaks the most. And it's one that I don't think that you would have seen other candidates like Donald Trump or Ben Carson agree on had it not been for the last debate. At NPR, we tracked the times, and Trump, who has dominated the previous debates, he actually ranked 4th in speaking time, and Ben Carson ranked 8th. So you really sort of saw an uneven divide, even more so. Normally we would see the top ranking candidates kind of getting the highest rankings, but this debate was a little bit all over the place.
Now, one candidate isn't on board with the demands. Governor Christie says he supports the RNC and that the presidency isn't scripted, so the debate shouldn't be either. Does Christie have a point? And what will the American people, potential voters, think about all this?
Well, I think this kind of plays into Christie's strengths. I mean, he's best unscripted. He's best in town halls. This is sort of how the American people got to know him, his no-nonsense, tough-talking style on the trail. When he broke into those moments in the debate, that was where he was strongest. And so it's not surprising that that Christie, where this style and sort of unhindered way may benefit him, that he would be breaking from the rest of his rivals.
Jessica, if those demands aren't met, Dr. Ben Carson's campaign managers seem to suggest that candidates would take the debate elsewhere, like Facebook or YouTube. Do you think the feud with the networks will go that far?
I think that they realize that this is sort of a mutually beneficial thing for them. They can reach the largest audience. They can bring their message directly to the people. I mean, and this is sort of the way that we've always done things. I know that this election cycle sort of is breaking the rules in many regards, but I don't think it's enough that we're going to see such a drastic change. I mean, certainly we're seeing these broadcasts on different platforms. CNN had live streamed theirs on the internet. I think we are going to see a push for a wider audience, a way to get this. For instance, the CNBC debate, if you didn't have cable, you didn't have a way to watch it. So I think that those are something, maybe a way for all people to watch it, that you could see them bending to. But, you know, it's interesting. This actually was the first cycle that you had the party committee, the RNC, taking control really of this, and is because in 2012 they felt that the debates did their eventual nominee, Mitt Romney, such a disservice. So we're sort of moving back a little bit toward what had been their traditional model, with the campaigns sort of negotiating directly with the networks. Now it seems like it's at such a heightened fever pitch of frustration that it sort of seems more drastic than I think it is, but I think that this is sort of the model they want to bring it back to.
Now, this battle with NBC started with last week's third presidential debate. Candidates and their campaigns called the line of questioning unfair and railed against the mainstream media. Do the candidates have a point, Jessica? Is there anything to suggest CNBC is at fault?
Well, I think that, you know, it's important to note, too, that people like Donald Trump were very frustrated with a line of questioning from Fox News even in the very first debate. What I've heard from people I've talked to is that, you know, necessarily it wasn't the questions that they were maybe upset with. It was sort of the way that they were asked. And, you know, anyone that was watching, I think, could see that at times the debate moderators really sort of lost control of the stage. You had sort of people talking over one another. There wasn't very clear direction on who was supposed to speak when, or how different time was being enforced and things too. So I think, you know, the consensus seems to be that there does seem to need to be clearer rules and a better way to sort of enforce those.
Well, I think I would be offended if I were running, and even as a viewer, if somebody asked me if I'm running a cartoon book type of campaign, that's disrespectful. So how unusual is all of this? During an election, is it normal for campaigns to get upset with networks and debate moderators?
Well, I think that certainly the mainstream media has become a favorite punching bag of a lot of candidates, certainly in the Republican Party. And so I think they sort of see an easy target in this. And it's one that's getting their supporters riled up. I don't think we've seen this at such a high fever pitch on this yet. And I think that it is something that they will eventually sort of rein under control and sort of come to a consensus with. But I mean, this has been a cycle where we've seen outsider candidates getting the most attention and the most rise in the polls. And this isn't sort of following the traditional constraints of a traditional campaign. So I think these debates are sort of trying to inch that way too.
All right, let's switch gears to Jeb Bush. Coming into the 2016 campaign season, the former Florida governor was the presumptive nominee. Now he's reportedly facing financial troubles as he treads water basically in the polls. Now Bush has launched a new campaign slogan, "Jeb can fix it." What should we expect, Jessica?
Well, I think this slogan was meant to emphasize his role in turning around Florida, trying to go back to those roots and show how he had sort of reversed the state when he first became governor. But it also can apply to his campaign as well, too. This is what a lot of his donors want to hear. What if his sort of nervous supporters want to hear is that Jeb can fix this slide. I think one thing that I've heard from people is that, you know, he hasn't run for office in over a decade. He seemed rusty on the trail. He seemed sort of uncomfortable with it, sort of the daily rigors of a campaign. And so they need to see, I think, you know, some more energy from him and, you know, a way of sort of taking on his rivals. He had, for instance, in the debate, I think he had a perfect shot sort of ready at Rubio. He made that, Rubio fired back, and he sort of let him slide a little bit. So I think they want to see a sort of more energetic candidate. And, you know, Jeb can talk about how he fixed Florida, and certainly that's what his advisors think he needs to be doing, and that's something that that's sort of his biggest message. But he also needs to be talking about how he's going to fix his campaign as well, too, of course.
We'll keep following it. It'll be fun to watch. Jessica Taylor, lead digital political reporter for NPR. Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks, Morris.